Why do some players just radiate confidence?
McDavid, in front, Forsland drops it off, Kachuk scores! And that's just going to...
We said he was on the runway the last time. What a play, and they want a timeout.
You can see it in their posture, the way they make decisions, and the way they carry themselves on and off the ice. And the reality is most players are faking it. They might say they're confident. They might try to pretend like they're confident and they believe in themselves. But when the pressure actually hits, when it's a big moment and the moment means that they have to actually show up, they crumble. They fall apart. And this is the time when you need confidence the absolute most, and that's when it gets the weakest for people who've been faking it the whole time. And after coaching hundreds of players from minor hockey, high-level junior hockey, college hockey, professional hockey, I've realized that there are 5 distinct stages of confidence that every player should try to go through, but only some players actually do. And most players get stuck in stage 2, and it absolutely crushes their performance, their development, and typically leads to them quitting way earlier and stops them from actually getting to their potential. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through each level so you can see exactly where you are and how you can move to the next level. Because if you haven't figured out the levels of confidence yet, once you understand it, it's going to help you really develop a path to work on your mental game and really become that type of confident person you know you can be. So the first level or stage of confidence is something I call approval-based confidence. And this is confidence that's 100% based on external validation. It's somebody who's seeking their coach's approval. They want their parents' approval. They want their teammates' approval and praise. They basically want everybody to say, you're awesome. You're the best. You're so good, man. And this is a stage that is very dangerous because essentially a player is constantly needing other people to give them external confidence in order for them to believe in themselves, which doesn't work at all. Something that I coach with every player is understanding how to build internal confidence, right? Something that exudes out of you. And so a player who's in this first stage is really going to be somebody who's trying to avoid mistakes. They don't want to make plays. They don't want to try stuff because they want to be safe. Because if they make mistakes, they're going to perceive that as other people are not going to approve of me. My parents are going to be disappointed. My coach is going to be mad at me. And if you feel that way, it is going to help you in some ways, right? Like it's not impossible to survive if you do this. You're still going to be able to play hockey, but it's going to constantly hold you back if you're stuck in this stage. And so this is the type of player who's going to crumble when high pressure situations come up, because when people don't believe in you, you are not going to have confidence because you are relying on external confidence. So if your coach puts you on the 4th line, you're going to believe, oh, well, I'm a 4th line player. If your parents say, hey, you had a bad game, you might internalize that as I'm a bad player, I suck. And once that starts to really take hold, this starts to go down deep into the player's subconscious mind, and they start to form an identity built around this. And so this is what Dr. Lovinger calls the conformist stage. And it's basically a stage where your identity is formed by what other people say is good. So if someone says a shooter is a good thing and you need to be a shooting player on the team, well, you're going to basically shape your identity around, okay, I got to be a shooter now. If your teammate says, man, I love guys who are really good at dangling, and you really respect that teammate, well, you're going to invest so much into deking and dangling, which may not be a good thing, right? And it sounds weird. It sounds kind of funny to say these things, but this is actually what happens in players' brains. And so Dr. Keegan also talks about the stages of ego development, and one of the things he talks about is how when you're in this kind of second stage that he calls, what will tend to happen is a player will essentially use other people kind of transactionally. They're going to be like, I want this person to just give me validation. So they'll ask these questions, kind of throwing things up in the air, saying, oh man, well, I guess I didn't play that well, so that their teammates or their coach or their parents will say, no, man, you did really well. I thought you did awesome, because they need that. That feeds their ego, and that's how they basically survive. And so this is a stage that is not going to work very well, but I would say somewhere around 90% of the population, not just hockey, but just in the world in general, is stuck in this stage. And so you have to learn to break out of it if you want to become a truly confident hockey player, because you cannot rely on the world to give you validation, because as time goes on, there are going to be doubters. You're going to doubt yourself at times. But if you don't figure out how to evolve into the next stages, it's going to hold you back. And so I'll break down why stage 2 is a good next step, but it's not the place you want to stay. And so let's talk about it. And so stage 2 or level 2 confidence is something I call ego-driven confidence. And this is where a player builds an identity of, I'm a goal scorer, I'm a shutdown defenseman, I'm a grinder. And their confidence is really developed through comparison. So this is where you get the elite prospect guy, the guy who's always searching up people's elite prospects, saying, oh, he has this many points, he had a point a game, oh man, he had 2 points a game, look at where he played. And they'll constantly be asking people, where did you get drafted? What opportunities are you getting? They're constantly comparing. And these are people who are doing this because it's a comparison to see where do you fit in relation to them? You're always asking, am I better than this person or are they better than me? And the danger with people in this stage, and if you're in this stage, you might be dangerous too, is that you can be very kind of like backstabby in this stage. This is where you get people who are constantly trying to like cut people down and rip on you and try to secretly kind of make you feel bad because they're trying to pull their teammates down. They're trying to pull other people around them down because they feel like they're only good in relation to other people. This is a super fragile type of confidence. It's a confidence that you do not want to stay stuck in because it'll hurt you for a very long time. And you'll constantly be in this place of, well, if this teammate gets 3 goals today, well, it doesn't matter if I scored a hat trick last game because I'm failing now. In comparison, I'm behind. And so this leads to a roller coaster. So players who are in that kind of first or second stage, you're going to constantly be on an emotional roller coaster ride. You're going to constantly feel like, man, I'm on top of the world one game. Now I'm struggling. In the first stage, okay, coach validated me, made me feel good. So you feel awesome. And then now it's, oh, coach told me I sucked, or he yelled at me, or my parents said you played a bad game, and boom, confidence drops. It sinks to the bottom. And so you have to learn to get out of the stage because you're constantly in this, well, if other people do well, or if other people don't validate me, you're screwed. And in stage 2, it's really just if other people do well compared to me, then I'm going to be behind. And so if you catch yourself constantly comparing, you're probably in stage 2. And so you're going to want to figure out, okay, how do I get to stage 3? How do I break out of it? So let's kind of break that down now. And actually, before we do go into that, if you're serious about building deep confidence, understanding how to move through these stages very, very quickly, because you will get there eventually, but you only have so many years as a hockey player to develop this. And if you can't do it when you're 15, 16, 17, that's typically that general age where, yeah, you're going to have a 25-year-old who might have developed, stage 3, 4, 5 confidence. But if you haven't developed it earlier than other people, then the mental game's not an advantage. So having a good mental game when you're between kind of 12 and 20 is going to separate you massively. Then obviously, as you get older, being able to push to the top stage 5 and be deeply, deeply confident is huge. But if you want to learn more about this, we have a free training below that'll teach you the basics of how to build a mental game, understanding all the kind of key components. There's a pinned post below where you can just book a call with my assistant coach. He'll break everything down for you, show you how you can actually build a confidence system. And then if it makes sense, we'll book a longer call and we can really go in depth with it, talk about how to set up a plan and see if it makes sense to work with us, or we can just give you some ultimate free resources that'll just set you up. But back to stage 3, this is what I call process-built confidence. And this is a pretty common type of confidence for players to have. This stage is one of those stages where you basically say, okay, I work really hard and that's what gives me confidence. And this is also where players shift from, ooh, what do other people think of me? Or they're not comparing, but they're saying, how can I grow? Like they're starting to see a future self and asking themselves, how can I get there? They're motivated or inspired by it. And you'll hear Carol Dweck talks about this concept of they're fixed mindset people, growth mindset people. It's cliche, but it makes sense. If you think I am fixed in who I am and it's because I was born this way, you're going to get stalled out there. But if you see yourself as somebody who has the potential to grow, you can be molded and shaped over time, well, you're going to act very differently because you see the opportunity for growth. And so people who believe foundationally that they can grow will take better actions, which will lead them to get better over time. People who have very fixed mindsets are very much like, oh, I am who I am and I'm never going to change. They're not going to take the same actions. So you can very quickly see basically the way you think about the world is going to lead you to take steps in a certain direction. And so as you start to move into stage 3, your confidence is going to start to become a lot more consistent. And the best way to get into this stage is you start reflecting more consistently. So maybe a player will start journaling. Maybe they start visualizing. They maybe start meditating and building kind of like a mindfulness practice of some kind. And as they start to do some actual reflection and they start to become aware of what's going on in their head, they become aware of how their actions are impacting their outcomes. This allows them to actually start to notice, oh, there's a pattern here. There's a certain way I think about the world. There's a certain action I keep taking. And now they have the ability to start to change it. And now confidence doesn't have this weird out of control feeling. It has this, I just need to build a proper process feeling. And once that gets put in place, everything changes for them. And so Lovinger would call this more the conscientious stage. So you're able to self-evaluate, you're able to take ownership, and you're able to set clear goals and actually start working towards those with the system. And as you get into this stage, this is where flow state becomes becomes a more controllable outcome, right? You can actually get into flow state more and more consistently. You can trust your skill set, because fundamentally flow state really happens when you just trust yourself and you have the ability to do it. And so in this stage, players have developed the trust in their ability because they've done the work, they've set up the systems, and they're not just showing up to the rink saying, oh, well, I worked out, I did my skill stuff like coach said, or I did my team practice. This is a player who's doing more and who understands, okay, I broke the beliefs, I changed the way I think, I feel differently, I've acted differently in preparation, and now they show up, okay, got it, I'm ready to go. So this is a great stage to be in because a player is more coachable, they're more grounded, they're more self-aware, and honestly, this is where a player becomes more of themselves. And I love seeing a player shift from stage 2 to 3 because you go from being very ego-driven to being very, I like this process, I like setting up systems, and I like doing the work. Once you get into this stage, it's like, okay, maybe I feel like this is it. Like, I got it. Maybe I don't need to evolve. But there are other stages. And so I think you'll see in stage 4, things shift a little bit. And level 4 or stage 4 is what I call system-aware confidence. This is where a player sees confidence as a system instead of a mood. It's basically realizing that confidence can 100% be trained. It's in their control. And you just need to learn to program the instincts using visualization, breath work, self-talk, focus triggers, and a whole bunch of other core skills. And this is where a player really does something key. They really detach from outcomes and they start focusing more on inspiration. They focus on just going out and executing. This is where a player can actually say, I just try. Like, I just do the work. I show up. I just perform. And they're not as frustrated when it doesn't work perfectly. Now, I'm not saying people in this stage are like impenetrable to negative feelings. It's just that even when they have negative feelings, they just don't penetrate as deep, right? It's not like as painful. When you're in the early stages, like stage 1, 2, or sometimes even 3, if you have a bad game, you just kind of feel like, like I'm not good. Like, it kind of hits you deep at your core identity, where stage 4 is where somebody actually has this confidence in themselves to the point of, I'm good. Like, I can have a bad shift. I can make a really dumb play. I can have a bad slump, and they're like, I'm fine. I'll be okay, right? And this is a major stage that if you don't get to it early on in your career, it's going to be very hard to navigate, especially when junior pressure hits, because junior it's high pressure. Like, you have to perform. It's very much just professional hockey where you don't get paid, and lots of guys do get paid. But ultimately, at that stage, there's just this awareness you need to have of how much pressure do you need to be able to take. And if you are somebody who's in stage 1 or stage 2, like you already kind of identify it, you have to figure out how to get out of those stages and move up, because when these moments hit, if you don't have at least stage 3, it's going to be very hard to perform. And so basically, just to summarize stage 4 or level 4, this is where somebody doesn't just say, oh, I try hard and that's all I do. There's somebody who can look at their whole system, like see everything from a holistic perspective and realize there's everything I do, whether it's how I work on my mind, how I work on my body, how I work on my skill, how I manage stress, how I sleep, how I recover, how I treat people around me, right? The relationships I have. They realize all of these things are all interconnected. And at this point, people don't just hope that those things work out. They actually design or engineer their game. They engineer their life to perform at an optimal level. And this is a massive stage. This is where if you stopped at this stage, you'd be good. Like, you can still become an insanely successful player. Now, the key moving from stage 4 to 5, and this is the stage that I wish I understood more of earlier on. But again, the challenge is you don't just stay in a stage. And maybe this is key to, probably should have said this earlier. You don't just get into a stage and stay there. You move through the stages, right? Like, you can drop down into lower stages accidentally. Maybe if you don't sleep well, if your nutrition's off, if your energy is low, you might slip into lower levels. But you can also tap into these higher levels even when you're typically spending most of your time in a lower level stage. So if you want to get to these higher levels, you got to understand them first and then do the things that are going to get you there. And then it's about staying there more and more consistently, right? You can think of it as, almost like Flappy Bird, right? Where like you're going up and down and you want to basically learn to stay up in that stage. And so instead of tapping the screen, staying up in that stage is basically doing the things that keep you up there. But if you stop doing the things mentally or recovery wise or skill wise or socially, all these things, then you'll start to drop back down again. And so stage 5 confidence is self-authored confidence. It's a little hard to say. You can just think of it as self-writing confidence, right? You actually write the script of who you are, how you want to feel and think, and you actually build a system and you understand on a deep subconscious level. So it's not just a system anymore, but your internal software is that identity. This is where you actually have made a true identity shift. And this is where if things go wrong, a player stays calm, they stay composed under pressure, and they lead the team without ego. A stage 5 player is pretty much always going to be a captain. captain on the team. They might not be the captain, but they're typically going to be either the C or one of the A's. And this is where a player understands what their purpose is, why they play the game. They feel deeply connected to just being there at the rink, and everything just kind of connects. And so for them, performance is tied to meaning, not metrics. So they don't go out and say, well, I have to score this amount of goals, or we have to win this game or championship. They have this feeling of, I know what matters. And this is where a player has that kind of almost quiet confidence. They're stable and they're able to maintain confidence even when adversity hits. So if the team has a really bad game, they have a really bad shift or game, or even the team is struggling through a whole bad month, this is the type of player with the type of confidence that they're so elevated above the problem. They've developed so many mental techniques, either through actually learning them or through accidentally developing them. But either way, when you get in this stage, this is like an unreal leader. And players at this stage, the sport almost becomes like an art to them. It's this expression of who they are. Players are able to slip fully into the moment because they actually trust exactly who they are. This is almost like a spiritual shift they go through, or in Ken Wilber's work in his integral theory model, this is kind of where a player has almost went to stage 2. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. It's a pretty complex model, but it's just really cool to think about this as a player is making this shift. And so a player in this stage is not trying to earn others' validation. They're not trying to, compare themselves. They're not worried about, oh, is my system perfect? They just have this deep trust and connection to what they're doing. And they build their system, they train themselves, and they just love this process that they're going through. And they're able to see this as something where they really love developing themselves. And they're going to be people who inspire others. Like, I think of Sidney Crosby as this stage. He's not in your face. He's not trying to make you believe that he's confident. He just knows what he's capable of, and he does all the right things, and he will speak up when he needs to. He'll do the things when they're required, but he's not trying to force it. He's just connected to the moment and does what's needed. And this is what players all kind of think they're at when they start building confidence. Like, this is what stage 2 players always think, even stage 1, but very few people get there. And in order to get there, you need to build deep self-awareness. You got to do all the physical reps. You got to learn how to do mental reps typically, and you need all the right tools. And so if this breakdown really opened your eyes to what level you're on or what stage you're in right now, and you're ready to actually take mental work seriously, like you really want to build a real mental game, have real deep confidence, move up the stages to a certain stage you should be at, maybe your goal is to hit level 5, I really recommend that you book a free mental game analysis call below. We're going to look at your situation, help you identify what's actually holding you back mentally, and we'll give you some resources that you can actually use after the call. But if we do think we can help, we'll lay out a plan of here's what we think you should do, here's what it would look like to work together potentially, and we can really figure out what the best options are. But just doing a free mental game assessment for a lot of players gives them the tools they need to at least see, okay, I know where I got to go next. And so you can book that below. The link is in the little description thing, or you can check it out at the bottom. There's a pin post. But either way, I really appreciate you watching to the end here. Hope you have an awesome day. And comment anything you want me to talk about in the next videos.